This is a Film Stories original podcast.
Hello, it is Ryan, and I was on a flight the other day playing one of my favorite social spin slot games on ChumbaCasino.com. I looked over at the person sitting next to me, and you know what they were doing? They were also playing Chumba Casino. Coincidence? I think not. Everybody's loving having fun with it. Chumba Casino is home to hundreds of casino-style games that you can play for free anytime, anywhere, even at 30,000 feet. So sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com to claim your free welcome bonus. That's ChumbaCasino.com and live the Chumba life.
No purchase necessary. VGW. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.
We made this. Hello everyone and welcome to the Xcast. The truth is in here. My name is Kurt North and thank you for joining me for the continuing coverage of this feature film, the I Want to Believe film, the second film of the X-Files universe. Thank you for joining me. We are going to be looking this week at minute 48, which starts at 47 minutes and finishes at 47 minutes and 59 seconds. We are still at Cheryl's car. Mulder has just identified the medical bracelet and we check the back of the car to find the bathing suit, and Mulder asks where the nearest pool is. And then we get to join what I consider to be the most VIP person in the entire movie, and we'll talk about that eventually, at the swimming pool. So that is where we currently are. Just before we do start, I do want to say thank you for tuning into the Xcast. Hopefully you'll enjoy all of our content that we've done over the past several years. And it would be great if you could give us some feedback. It's incredibly important to us. So if you have been enjoying the Xcast, we kindly ask if you could please take a moment to leave us a 5-star review on your preferred podcast platform. You can find us on Instagram, for example, at the Xcast Pod, or the Facebook group, the X-Files Basement, an Xcast podcast fan group, or the X_cast on Twitter or X, whichever you may call that now. We've got John back with us. John, yeah, we're still in this scene. We're just about to change scenes in this minute. We're going from the wilderness in that snowy backdrop that we've talked about over the last couple of episodes, and we're heading to the swimming pool. I think I'll just briefly talk about this bracelet thing, because that's the key thing that we do see throughout this film, isn't it? At the very beginning, we've talked about that. The intercutting scenes that we have that was very kind of Hitchcockian in its style that you talked about earlier on, that we do get a glimpse of that bracelet. We get to see the bracelet here. There's, I think there's a moment where Mulder, just before our minutes started, back 2 or 3 episodes ago when I was talking to Carl and Sarah, that Mulder's looking at a picture and sees the bracelet. So the bracelet is really important as connecting the dots to get to where the killers are. What do you think of the use of that MacGuffin to actually thread throughout the film? So we've got that like linear thread so we can get to the actual killers themselves.
I really like it. It's really important, like you said, as a MacGuffin, a Hitchcockian technique. The thing we follow, the clue that gets us where we need to go, you need to have that. You need to have something that if at first you think is unimportant and then it recurs and you kind of have that aha moment. And I really like how it's used here because, again, in the previous minute, we had Father Joe come into the crashed car, go into the driver's seat metaphorically and literally, and totally come up short, right?
Yeah.
And everybody bails out. But then what happens in this minute? Mulder picks up the bracelet. So he's literally picking up the baton that Father Joe dropped. And now he's stepping forward. Father Joe couldn't do it. He couldn't carry the investigation to the next step. And now Mulder, being completely invested, being back in his element, seeing things maybe he wasn't seeing that he would have seen, 5 years ago, but wasn't seeing so clearly. He sees this, puts it together, total investment, picks up the baton of the investigation, and off we go with sort of our first real significant lead that isn't produced specifically by Father Joe, because now Mulder has stepped into that role where he's able, we talk about Frank Black seeing what the killer sees. But, Mulder has that imagination too, not the same way, but it's, I'm now in this. I have this sense of imagination. I'm starting to make connections because I can imagine I'm stepping into the gulf that Father Joe just left us by abandoning the driver's seat.
Within that minute as well, I think it's just after when Whitney says, I think we've done with Father Joe. So she's the one that's actually putting that deadline on it to say, we're moving on, progressing the story on a little bit, which I quite like the fact that, and this is what I like about Minute by Minute podcasts, actually. I don't know if you ever listened to any of the other ones, Star Wars Minute and stuff. The Heat Minute, Michael Mann actually appeared on the Heat Minute one, which is great.
Oh my gosh, didn't know that.
Yeah. If you watch I Want to Believe and, catch the bracelet's great. And, you might catch it on the, properly on the third or fourth watch and go, all right, that's great. Or if you're looking, like you've mentioned in the previous episodes, about the beginning and the intercuts that's played between and how fast the intercuts are when we're stabbing into the ice and, and the actual stabbing itself happens with the invasion of the property and Bannon being abducted, that you just get to see these moments that you wouldn't necessarily, that would normally wash over you, and just these little moments that allow you to kind of like take that little breath of, it almost puts you in the mindset of the writer and director, because they have to film it. They have to do those things. They have to make those minutes. And that's what I find fascinating with doing this style of podcast.
Absolutely. I mean, I think that even reviewing films, as I do so often, you're looking at things like, thematic consistency, character arcs, visualization, but you're not thinking that necessarily on that moment by moment level. And then to sort of, drill down on that, to put the microscope on it and see really how accomplished it is and how each minute serves a really distinct purpose. I mean, it just shows you the kind of artistry involved in filmmaking, and in particular a film like this, I think.
We look back at the frozen stiff bathing suit as well, because it's obviously got chlorine. That Whitney, I think it's good that Whitney's actually is the one that kind of goes chlorine, because you're not just given the Mulder aspect of like the bathing suit. It's a like you said with the Scully and the Samantha thing in previous episodes that we've been on so far, that it gives Whitney that agency to actually go, well, she is a really good detective and such, and she's actually partnering with Mulder, and I know that will come into play later in the film. What do you make to that relationship, actually thinking about it? Because there's a little bit of tension that they portray with Scully and Mulder and Whitney.
There clearly is, and I was more aware of it this time, and my wife sort of pointed it out to me at one point. So Whitney is clearly looking at Mulder as a mentor, but she's also, I think, looking at him as an attractive man. I mean, I think their relationship, it's almost like, again, which is so interesting, again, for counterpoint, juxtaposition, he and Scully are having some difficulties. They're fighting. They're obviously very close. But like in Whitney, it's like going back to 1993, Mulder's with this young woman, finding herself, like listening to him, engaging with him without a lot of that interpersonal baggage that has been raised through whatever it is, 15 years of this, right? And they clearly kind of have this spark that they play off each other, just like the spark we saw with him and Scully in 1993. It's like beautiful young woman, interested in him, interested in his thoughts. That the stimulation there, I mean, it's not like overtly sexual. It's smart is sexy kind of thing. Like we're playing off each other, like swimming, bathing suit, chlorine, where's they're building off each other the way we're used to seeing Mulder and Scully like complete each other's thoughts, figure things out. So it's like, yeah, Whitney, she does have that moment where she says to him, this is a longer conversation, which I guess what that means is this isn't about the case anymore. I'm attracted to you. I mean, that's one reading of that. And I think that went by me the first couple times I watched the film, that's what she was saying. But my wife helped me see it this time. So there's clearly that. Again, I don't want to say it's like perverse, but it's all kind of twisted in there for Mulder. It's like his fixation with saving women who need help.
Yeah.
The smart is sexy philosophy of the X-Files, which is that, I remember there was some review that said everything that happens, even though it's horrific, is like so sexy. It's like you want to gasp, you want to blink, but if you gasp or blink, you'll miss what's happening and you can't. There's like this sort of arousal through figuring things out that's inherent to the X-Files. And this moment, then you juxtapose that with the fact that it's not with Scully, right? It's Mulder with somebody else. And how do you feel about that? Without putting too fine a point on it, or it's like he's cheating on her or anything, but that note is there.
It's an interesting note to play as well, because that, knowing the fan base at this point, you're going to rile them up. Drama is drama because you need conflict. And I think that element of it I know it's maybe a pool that people maybe say they're going too much of, but the fact that they use that, it is interesting that they would. But I do think you're right. And so going back to the grounding issue, that the film is very grounded. Even in My Struggle, when we talk about My Struggle eventually, when they say for better and for worse, like intimating that they might have been married at a point, or at least, obviously cohabiting at the very least. And they are going through really dark times, like what is interspersed in this movie. That to add a sexual or not even a sexual, just a romantic interest or an interest in him, because the whole aspect of Mulder is that exactly what I said in the previous episode with yourself, is that Mulder is not talking to anyone in that room. He's barricaded himself in the unremarkable house, doesn't do anything, and he's peacocking up, like I said in the previous episode. And he's got his jibe back, and that, as you say, is smart, is sexy. That is, Mulder is completely Mulder. He's become Mulder again, and people are attracted to Mulder's traits. And that, for me, is not a surprise that someone like Whitney might become interested in that element, and especially given we don't know where Scully is in the realm of their partnership. Are they together? Are they strained? And adding that conflict in a grounded movie makes absolute perfect sense to me.
The X-Files, for so long, and it's so delightful, is will they or won't they, did they or didn't they? And it's the play, it's the romanticism, that it's so sort of, traditionally romantic, the sparks flying of, are these people going to get together or not, that are both so into each other. But I love this. Like, I love that the X-Files grew. I love that it grew and that it moved on, that we don't have to constantly replay the same notes, that we can move to this grounded sort of adult thing, which is like, yes, we've been together. We've had sex. We have this deep well of affection for each other, but we're living together, and like, life is hard, and it's not all sparks flying and crazy attraction and passion for each other. It's much more grounded and real here. It's like, we love each other, we know each other, but that doesn't make it easy every dang day. There's just something very real, and actually, I would say, like, very sweet and affecting about this. It's moving Mulder and Scully. They're maturing. They still love each other more than anybody else, but they're real and they're grown up, and these moments occur to people. So I really like this. Again, and it's a huge step forward, I think, for the X-Files. Not every franchise manages that. If you go back to the 80s and the will they or won't they dynamic of Sybil Shepherd and Bruce Willis and the TV series Moonlight, that's all they had. And as soon as they lost the will they or won't they, the show like collapsed upon itself. For me, something like I Want to Believe is a declaration that there's a lot more here than just that, right? That the relationship is deeper than just the two attractive people who want to have sex with each other, and are they going to have sex? There's a lot more to Mulder and Scully than that.
So finally, for this minute, before we join Scully, we are introduced to the pool guy, who I think is the most valuable person in the entire film. I love him. I think he's just so deadpan humor. It's totally my humor. I did a bit of investigation. He's a guy called Roger Harchkow, who's two-time Tony-winning producer. He died in 2020.
No.
And he was a former mail order entrepreneur. So that was what he did from my research. And he received Tony Awards for producing 1992's Gershwin's musical Crazy for You and 2000 revival of Kiss Me Kate. He was 91 year old when he died. So it's interesting that he's gone from entrepreneur to investor to producer. But it's interesting how would you end up on an X-File film, which is probably the biggest X-File of them all for me personally.
Well, he's so good in the role.
Yeah.
You think it might be a throwaway role, but it's not really, because you just said like Mulder, he's peacocking, he's Mulder again, right?
Yeah.
And he's got this full head of steam, and he's made the connection, and he's ready to go, and he goes into the to the swimming pool, and he's stuck by this guy who absolutely does not care. This guy's swimming pool, it's his own little fiefdom. He doesn't like these young people here. What's wrong with them, right? And he's not interested in solving a case. He's not interested in saving a life. And here comes Mulder, fully Mulder. And again, so interesting, dealt like this immediate reverse, right?
Yeah.
And it's like a series of reverses. Like, oh yeah, I make them all sign in. Can I see that sign in? No, I threw it away. Right? It's like, oh, yeah. Right. Wow. Okay. So it's like, wow, you're just like messing with me. You know, I've got it all together. I put the case together. I just need this thing from you. Nope. Not going to get it.
Yeah. Mulder's face, as you say, with him going in and just his reaction to him was again comedy gold. It was them two as a double act would be great. They're both dry anyway. But as I say, I mean, we actually get to the point. We don't quite get to the keep one every day, but we will mention it because then we can just talk about Scully in the next episode. The fact that he's deadpan humor, as you say, these young people all look the same to me, and Mulder's just like wide-eyed open, just going, "Oh my God, what is going on here?" And that delivery of, as you say, of the line of it's, "Do you have a log of people come in?" It's like, "Yes, I have a daily one. Can I see yesterday's?" No, I threw that away. It's like, oh, it's just deadpan, perfect delivery, and I love it. And as I say, that melds into minute 49, which we will go into now. We've got a couple of more minutes, minute 49, in which we see Scully start to do the operation, and minute 50 is the operation. So we'll go into them. Until then, remember, as always, trust no one.
Lucky Land Casino, asking people, what's the weirdest place you've gotten lucky?
Lucky? In line at the deli, I guess?
Aha, in my dentist's office. More than once, actually.
Do I have to say?
Yes, you do.
In the car before my kids' PTA meeting.
Really?
Yes.
Excuse me, what's the weirdest place you've gotten lucky?
I never win and tell.
Well, there you have it. You can get lucky anywhere, playing at LuckyLandSlots.com. Play for free right now. Are you feeling lucky? No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18+. Terms and conditions apply. See website for details.